Okay, I'm going to show you how to plot scatter plots using your TI-84, and we're going from the Algebra 2 textbook on page 119, where we've got two sets of data to plug in. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to go to statistics, which is that button there, and edit your statistics. So we need to put in all of that data. Now, I've got it in L1, L2, and L3, which means this is the year. These ones here are the men's times going down here, and these ones here are the women's times. Now, you can press pause for a second while you enter all that data and just make sure that it's all in there correctly and that every piece of data has a value. Because if it doesn't, then it's going to kind of mess around with the graphs and things, and it won't do exactly what you've asked it to do. Now I'm going to have a look see what that graph actually looks like. So if I press graph, um, we don't see anything here. That's because the window range is kind of off a little bit. So if I go to zoom, and I think it's zoom 9, what it will do is it will zoom statistic, zoom stat, and it will zoom in on all of my data. Okay? Now that gives me one of the pieces of data. So if I go to stat plot there, oh, look, the first one has been turned off. So let's turn that one, sorry, the second one has been turned off. Let's turn that on. And let's turn that on. And remember, the second piece of data was L1 and L3. That was the the women's times. So I'm just going to go down to here. I'm going to go second function L3. Oops, that's not right. Let's delete that. Second function L3. So that's going to plot 1 versus 3. Let's have a look what that does now. Let's go zoom 9. Okay, so I've got two pieces of data there. Now, if I wanted to, I could make 1 crosses and 1 boxes. So let's do that. Second function stat plot. So let's go the first one. Let's make the first one crosses. So down here, this is L1 and L2. And you can see it's little boxes, but I want it to be crosses. So let's do that. Okay, now let's have a look. Here we go. So two sets of data. Here's the women's times. Here's the men's times, and here's the women's times. Now what we need to do is we need to find out at what time will the women's winning time equal that of the men. So that really means we need to find out where they cross. But in order to do that, we need to find out what the equations of those lines are. So I'm going to go to statistics. I'm going to go over to test, and I'm going to use what we call a linear regression t-test. And I'm going to go down here. Now with the linear regression t-test, I can select what I use as my x and y, and I want to use L1, L2 for the first one. There's linear regression. So L1, L2 for that one, and I'm going to ask it to calculate. And it gives me, so it will tell me the equation in y equals a plus bx. So b will be the slope, a will be the intercept. So 46.08 was the intercept, and negative 0.02 is going to be the slope. So my equation would be y equals negative 0.024 plus 46.08. This also tells me another interesting piece of data, and that's whether this data actually fits that equation. That gives me the correlation coefficient, and that's negative 0.6. So what it's saying is it doesn't fit the data particularly well. If it was very strong negative correlation, it would be negative 1, and it's negative 0.6. If I go to y equals, I can get that to input that equation in. So I'm going to press vars, and I'm going to go down to statistics. So they're all the variables. So then let's go across to equation, and I want it to put in the the regression equation in, and that's plug that in. And now if I graph it, there's that equation there. Now I also want it to give me this equation here, so I'm going to go to stat, tests. I'm going to go down to linear regression t-test. There it is, linear regression t-test. Only this time I'm going to ask it for my x list to be L1, and I'm going to ask this one to be L3. I'm going to ask it to calculate. And it gives me a slightly different equation. I'm going to go to y equals, and in this one, I'm going to put, remember, vars, statistics. I can just press 5. Go over to equations. There we go. And let's graph that one and see what happens. Perfect. Now, what I really want to see is I want to see where these lines cross, and at the moment I can't. So I'm going to go to zoom out, and then I'm going to press enter to actually zoom it out. Can I see where they cross? Not really. I'm going to zoom out again, so press enter again. Confusing. So I can see that they cross there, but I can't exactly tell. I'm going to go to zoom box this time. Now what that does is it allows me to drag. It allows me to drag a box over most of that data. So if I press enter, it's like if you were using a computer and you just dragged a box over it. And I'm going to make sure I get in the point where they cross. Should have it in there. And let's press enter. Okay, there we go. So there's the men's times, the women's times, and here's the two equations of those lines. Now from here, I want it to calculate where they intersect. I could guess, but I don't want to. I'm going to go to second function, calculate. I'm going to go to the intersection. So I want to find out where they intersect. So I'm going to go to this one. The first curve is on this line here, and I press enter. Second curve wants me to go just past where they cross, and that should give me the intersection. Do you want me to guess? No, thank you. I want you to tell me the exact answer. And the exact intersection there is the x is 167 and the y is on 42, and that's the exact intersection. Now what this tells us really is it tells that the trend continues. The trend continues, and the time that the men and women's will be equal will be about 100 years from 1968, or 99.7, or sorry, 167 years away from where we started our first piece of data. Okay, and that's right around here. So it's going to be a long time until the women actually catch up with the men.